Welcome back, Pre-Algebra. We're in Lesson 99. When we have an exponent, we understand that it applies to the number that we are given. Let's say we have 4 squared. We understand that this is 4 times 4 and that equals 16. Right? This is just the number of times we multiply this times itself. When we have a negative number, however, that has an exponent, we need to remember that it is not applied to the negative symbol. When we have an illustration like this, or we have a problem like this, what we're actually seeing is negative 1 times 4 squared. That's what you actually have. And so what you end up with is negative 1 times 4 times 4, which equals a negative 16. So we square the number first, and then we apply the negative to it. The negative is not attached to the 4. It is, in fact, attached to a 1 that is multiplied against the 4. But the power of the exponent here, this exponent's power of multiplication, is attached to the 4. So when we put it in parentheses or we multiply it out, we want to write it like this within parentheses so that we recognize that this happens first and then this happens after. All right, so do your exponent first and then your multiplication of the negative 1 after. So let's do a couple of example problems. Let me clear the page. So we have 99.1. And these are fairly easy. This is going to be a good short lesson for you. We have negative 4 squared minus a negative 3, and that is squared, minus 3 cubed. Now, one of the things that I want you to notice is that here we're using parentheses and we are including a negative 3 within the power. When you see it written like this, that means that the exponent applies to everything within the parentheses. Whatever the exponent is touching, that is what it is applied to. So let's start at the beginning. We have negative 4 and 2. So we know from our example earlier that this is negative 1 times 4 squared minus, and then this is going to be negative 3 squared, and then this is going to be negative 1, so this is going to be plus, negative 1 times 3 cubed. Actually, let me rewrite this a little bit better because technically this is plus a negative 1 times this. This is what we actually have going on in this sentence when we break it down into its most simplified form. So now we can actually do the mathematics here. So first, we see some parentheses, but what's in the parentheses, we're talking about our PEMDAS, our order of operations, right? We see parentheses, but what's inside the parentheses are single values. So there's no operations inside the parentheses to do. So we can skip that. So now we have exponents. Exponents here, and exponents here. So that's next. That's what we need to do next. So we're going to say negative 1 times, and 4 times 4 is 16, plus negative 1. I'm sorry, I wrote negative 2 for some reason. Negative 1. And this exponent is applied to the entire thing. So this means when you have a negative 3 squared, when you have a negative number squared, the whole thing is squared, right? So that would be negative 3 times negative 3, which would be a positive 9 because a negative times a negative is a positive. So that would be a positive 9 here, plus a negative 1, and then we have 3 times 3 times 3, that would be 27. Now we can complete all of this. So we have negative 16, and then we have a negative 9. We know that's going to be minus 9. We can just write the value here, and this is going to be minus 27, right? Because we know we are combining these. this is what we're actually doing. We are adding this number and adding this number to this number. So when we have all the same signs, we're always just combining numbers. It's just how those numbers affect one another, whether they're positive or negative. So in this case, because all the numbers have the same sign, we can write it like this and still understand that we're adding all the numbers together and that number is going to be a negative number. So 16 plus 9 plus 27, that's going to be 15 plus 7 is 22. Carry the 2, that's going to be 52. So a negative 52. Because all of the signs are the same, we're combining the numbers and keeping the sign. All right, that's what we do when we have like signs. All right, so remember this. Put that in your notes right here. Let me highlight it. Highlighting is always more fun. Remember that whenever you have the exponent on the outside of the parenthesis, it applies to everything inside the parenthesis. So that negative is included only when you have a parenthesis and the exponent's on the outside. So let's try 99.2. We have, let's see, negative 3, and it has parenthesis, and it has a cube on the outside, minus a negative 2 with a cube on the outside, or a 3. And then we have minus 2 with a 2 on the outside, or connected to the 2 right here. So what we really have here is negative 3 cubed plus negative 1 times negative 2 and it's cubed plus negative 1 times 2 squared. So that's what we're really seeing when we look at this. So we can go ahead and we can address the fact that there's nothing within the parenthesis to solve until we get to this one, where we have an exponent within the parenthesis. So we can go ahead and solve that. Negative 3, I'm going to leave that the way it is. This becomes 4 because 2 times 2 is 4. Now don't be confused. This is not 2 times 2. This is saying multiply 2 2 times. Okay? This is the number of times we multiply this number. All right, so now we have a value here, and we can multiply here. We're saying negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. Well, we have an odd number of negative signs, so the answer is going to be negative. And we know 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. So this is going to be negative 27 plus, we have a negative 1. Now we have negative 2 3 times. So it's going to be negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Well, we know that an odd number of negative signs is going to give us a negative answer. And 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So negative 8. So that's what goes in here is negative 8. And we know we have negative 1 times 4. That's going to be a negative 4 here. So let's go back. And we have negative 27. We have negative times negative. That's going to be a positive 8 because we have a pair. We have an even number. So it's plus 8 plus negative 4. Right? So now we have two items that are the same sign. So we can add them together and keep the same sign. So negative 27 and a negative 4 together make a negative 31. And then we have this positive 8, so plus 8. So now we have two numbers that are different signs. So we subtract and we keep the sign of the larger number. So 31 minus 8 is going to be 23. But because 31 is the bigger number, we keep the negative sign. Okay? So negative 23 is the answer to 99.2. So if you need to break it down like this to go from here to here, do that. If that simplifies it for you, I urge you to do whatever works for you, because this is really what you're seeing. So it's okay to write it down that way. And that is all we have for lesson 99. I will see you in lesson 100. And I hope you enjoy your practice problems.